Alright, I brought them.
It's about time!
Last September, I made a tier list on every song in the My Singing Monsters series. And as these games are actively updated, I made a follow-up video. Now, I wouldn't have made this video so soon if My Singing Monsters hadn't added 3 new monsters to 4 islands at once. The point is, I want to hold off these videos until there's enough new content to make up a video. However, seeing as there's nearly 3 times the amount of content now as my last update, we've got more than enough to talk about. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos in this series, I'd highly recommend them. Otherwise, it's time to update my Singing Monsters song tier list. Again. Before we continue, let's touch up on our tier list. There we are. Now, to continue from our last update. This will be a really short section, but since Magical Sanctum didn't have Dipsters in my initial video, I thought I'd discuss them quickly. The Dipsters are fine on this island. I don't dislike them, but I'm not jazzed by them either. I guess I'm more bringing them up to shine light on the fact that they haven't done much with Magical Sanctum recently. But at the same time, the core magical islands have gotten a lot of attention lately. I'm sure it's only a matter of time. After all, no one expected the monster handlers to spontaneously release on Magical Gold Island. Wait, what the f- I don't even know how to start with this one. If there's one thing I appreciate about the Magical Islands, it's how different they sound from every other island in the game. The biggest example of this is Magical Sanctum, but I think Magical Nexus strikes a middle ground between Sanctum and the other My Singing Monsters islands. It leans into the traditional tribal vibe of Sanctum, while still being able to put a spin on it through its unique vocalists and electronic instrumentalists. Speaking of which, Magical Nexus may have the strongest usage of monsters of the large multi-class islands. What I mean by this is that islands like Gold and Amber don't utilize all of their monsters at their full potential. They're still some of my favorites, but Magical Nexus doesn't really have this problem. Yes, monsters like Cantorell and Platy don't play as often as other monsters, but they still have an important role to the overall song. Bulbo is the only monster on Nexus that feels weak, but that's nothing compared to the amount of monsters on Gold, Amber, or even the continent that have a weaker presence. My point is that on an island with 32 monsters, only one feels weak, and every other is so good, there's not a bad monster here. Magical Nexus is a great island with a strong balance of monsters that give their best in creating an excellent song. S tier. Remember how I said that I wouldn't have made a follow-up video to my tier list so soon if My Singing Monsters hadn't added 3 new monsters to 4 islands at once? Well, try 5 new islands. Yeah, the Mirror Islands, which were just alternate versions of the natural islands, all got recomposed tracks, meaning that I have remixes of Plant, Cold, Air, Water, and Earth Island to add to my list. Of course, I've already given my thoughts on the natural islands, but now I have to share them in context of these new tracks. So, let's get into them, starting with... There may be a bit of recency bias here, but I'm starting to prefer Mirror Plant Island over Base Plant Island. I'm not sure if they were trying to play into the ethereal element, but Mirror Plant reflects the chill sound of its ethereal, Ghast, really well. I like that vibe, as well as how much less cluttered it sounds. It especially gives room for monsters I didn't like on Base Plant Island, such as the Wordos, to be heard with other monsters rather than over other monsters. There are a couple things I don't like about Mirror Plant, such as a select few monster placements, and this verse.
They turn red and they turn gold.
But overall, I like more than I don't like, such as the song structure, the wordos, and how monsters like Ma, Gast, Sugarbush, and Gajoob have more opportunities to shine. B tier. I put Celestial Island that high? Nah, let me rearrange this tier list real quick. There we go. Mirror Cold is a winner. Long before the Mirror Islands were officially recomposed, I was hoping that the monster handlers would give the Mirror Islands their own songs based on the soundtrack version of these islands. Safe to say, Mirror Cold is the closest to that vision, with a clear intro, middle, and... okay, the end could be better, but the loop is good. Mirror Cold is simply better Cold Island. While a few of its flaws persist, such as Wubbox being bad and the Dipsters being bearable, the wordos are excellent here. Again, these lyrics are nothing crazy, but I like the lead into the pre-chorus and the chorus. The song is also especially structured well. The intro is really promising and the chorus delivers, especially through the use of Furcorn, Strombonen, and Deej. Even the natural monsters, which I consider weaker on Cold compared to Plant, are used much stronger on Mirror Cold. I don't know what more to say, this is the best way to listen to Cold Island. And although Cold isn't my favorite, I'm confident in giving Mirror Cold a B tier.
I'm light as a feather, I'm the bigger light girl.
I'm gonna bet that at least half of you anticipating this video solely wanted to hear my thoughts on Mirror Air Island. And honestly, this island fucking blows. Alright, jokes aside, this is not a good recomposition. Out of all the natural islands, Air Island has the strongest song structure in my opinion. However, this means that going against the song structure makes the song sound clunky, to the point where the best parts of Mirror Air Island are those closest to Air Island. Mirror Air tries to do a lot, and I respect that, but hardly any of the verse variations sound good. My favorite example is the verse with Epic Wubbox. Like, this transition is not making it on the original soundtrack. The use of the wordos is also just awful. The novelty of splitting their verses in two is just that, a novelty. It just doesn't sound good structurally. It's like breaking up a conversation into 4 segments with long gaps in between. Outside of the wordos, everything is just so much weaker than on Air. There's nothing I like about Mirror Air other than the ambition in making this remix work. On rare occasions, I'll listen to Party or even Celestial Island, but I'll almost never listen to Mirror Air willingly. It's the first island I could comfortably say is bad. Low D tier. Mirror Water Island is inconsistent, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'd compare the strong parts of it to Mirror Cold, and the weak parts of it to Mirror Plant. It has a great opening. The intro is awesome, and I like the choice to separate the wordos' first verse into 2. However, you can tell Magpie is better suited to duet with Pralsona. Then you get to this verse. I don't think we needed an empty dubstep break, it just sounds awkward smack dab in the middle. From here on out, Mirror Water alternates between a verse with the wordos and an instrumental verse. which presents my issue with Mirror Water Island. It tries to better balance the calm and the chaos, but it does so through separation rather than integration. As such, some verses feel disconnected, and the song structure feels restrictive. It's not a bad song, but Water Island feels more full. C tier.
The ocean water is deep. The fire makes a big heap. Then the lava spews out. The fire grows tall. The eruption!
I feel like Mirror Earth did what Mirror Water tried to do so much better. Mirror Earth uses its quieter monsters to build up to the chorus. It acts as a calm before the storm while maintaining Earth Island's tense vibe. It's a fantastic opening that's paced really well. But once you get to the chorus, Mirror Earth doesn't put all its eggs in one nursery. The song gradually continues to build up, culminating in some of the best Wubbox and Wordo usage I've ever heard in an MSM song. It's crazy how well done this recomposition is. The build up to the Wubboxes was perfect, the Wordos delivered great transitions, and I appreciate how they didn't pull any Mirror Air bullshit and separate Pom Pom and Hula. Mirror Earth is up there with Mirror Cold. I can't say that Mirror Earth is better than Earth Island, but I do prefer the way Mirror Earth is structured as a song. A tier. And with that, we've ranked every natural Mirror Island. What's next? I don't think I'd call Ethereal Workshop ethereal, but man is it cool. Ethereal Workshop houses the triple, quad, and quint element ethereal monsters, who have been deemed an impossibility since Feng Prey was added in 2014. No one expected Ethereal Workshop to be a thing, and I'm sure no one expected that this mismatch of unstable monsters and unorthodox sounds would sound good together. But they do. Ethereal Workshop managed to make it on my updated tier list during Wave 1, and it ranked B tier with only 5 monsters to its name. Come Wave 2, and the song was expanding. We got our first quad element ethereal, which would become a trend in Waves 3 to 6, and the song would become fuller, longer, and culminate with the surprise drop of Bamibeth, the seemingly impossible quint element ethereal monster. This island rivals Wublin Island in its chaos factor. Again, you would not expect these sounds to mesh well together, but they do it without sounding noisy. My biggest problem with Wublin Island is that it devolves into noise, but even when every monster plays in the same verse, it's just the right level of chaos for me. Speaking of monsters, this island's got some great ones. Some of the obvious ones include Ogler, Gadzooks, Yurik, Whale, and Bamibeth, but I want to point my attention towards Zert and Teeter Totter. These two may be some of my favorite complementary/transition monsters in the game, and even though they get a lot of flack, I think they deserve to be appreciated. Despite the song being complete, I ironically prefer my rendition of Ethereal Workshop over the original, as I feel a couple verses could use some more monsters. But that is not a knock at the original song. Ethereal Workshop is just fantastic overall. It's got a great song that's as chaotic as it is catchy and unique, without a bad monster in sight. I'm gonna place Ethereal Workshop at the bottom of S tier for now, but this tier list will be finalized at the end of the video. Like the section for the Dipsters on Magical Sanctum, I'm gonna speed through some of the minor additions made on previous islands. Starting with... I appreciate how even after 11 years, the monster handlers are still coming up with new content that adds new mechanics and expands the game's world. Such is the case with Titansouls, who from what I can tell, take the place of the Colossi for the magical islands. Bear with my vocabulary as I'm not that well versed in MSM lore, but as with Awakening the Colossals, you can activate a Titansoul by linking monsters on its home island. Phosphor and Phlox is Light Island's Titansoul. I've already sung my praise for Light Island twice now, so I'm gonna keep it brief. It was nice before Fire Expansion, but Fire Expansion added more passion. Like with Water Island for example, I find that you could listen to Light Island with or without the Fire Expansion monsters to get a different experience. But no matter how you listen to it, Phosphor and Phlox should remain a constant. Phosphor and Phlox is unique in that it more so adds to the song's ambience. It fleshes out the song by pushing the light aspect of Light Island harder than any other monster. If Light Island stopped getting updated from here, I'd be more than okay with it. Phosphor and Phlox is an excellent monster, and locks Light Island into A tier. Song-wise, I don't get the hype around Firehaven. Yeah, we're not doing that again. If there are two things that people take away from my MSM opinions, it's that I don't like Celestial Island, and that I think Firehaven is overrated. The first I won't revoke, Celestial Island is ass. But now that Epic Wubbox has landed on Firehaven, what do I think of it now? It's good. Firehaven's Epic Wubbox is one of my favorites aesthetically, and its additions to the song are solid. However, that's really all I have to say about it. Do I like Firehaven more than I did before? Yeah, but not enough for me to rank it any higher. B tier.
My name is Mimic, and I'm here to say I don't have fire, and that's okay.
This is the first time I've ever had to rewrite a section for a video, because I didn't account for the fact that Wubbox and Mimic were also added in between this video and my first update, so let's talk about them. Fire Oasis Wubbox is probably the best a Wubbox has sounded since Wublin Island, which is a huge compliment. Although Wubbox's sound is a huge contrast on several islands, I've noticed that the monster handlers have been experimenting more with their sound while still keeping it distinct to them. I don't think Wubbox fits the most on Fire Oasis, but I like what they add. Mimic was another addition that came as a surprise to many, and this is so much better than what we got in Dawn of Fire. Their silliness fits the vibe perfectly, and they even mimic more than one monster. They add more variation to the second verse, and make Gobblegord's verse bearable. What more could you ask for? Finally, there are the stars of the show, Rare and Epic Wubbox. Add a lot to the island, and even play all together. I'm definitely a bigger fan of Rare Wubbox here than on Wublin Island. Ah, shit. I'm anxiety. I'ma make you feel stressed. It's good. The idea of it being dysfunctional due to only requiring 10 Rare Wublins to power up instead of the usual 20 is really smart. but I feel like people overhype this Wubbox to no end. 5 tracks is impressive, don't get me wrong, but it's really subtle in the full song. That doesn't mean it's bad, of course, but I wish it had more of the spotlight. Anyways, where was I?
They were colossal put me here, so now I'm gonna sing with my mimic cheer.
Fire Oasis Rare Wubbox, really good. As for Epic Wubbox, they're on par with Fire Havens, both in design and sound. I don't have a lot more to say other than they really hit that shit, and are a great addition to Fire Oasis. I may consider repositioning it, but it's an A-tier island regardless. It's crazy how much attention the Magical Islands have received since Fire expansion, and Paranormals are no exception. As of writing this script, Harionette is the most recent addition to My Singing Monsters, and it's favorable that we release this video with a new class being introduced. Imagine how many Paranormals there'll be when we update this tier list again. Anyways, Harionette's a nice monster. It's a bit subtle in the full song, but its sound is as good as it is chilling. Harionette is also the first monster to have a different sound on its mirror island, a mechanic unique to paranormal monsters. Oh wait, I'm getting ahead of myself again. 4 mirror islands weren't enough, huh? Yeah, so with the release of Titansouls came 4 new mirror islands, and we're gonna rank them all, starting with Mirror Firefront, not gonna catch me this time, Mirror Psychic Island. I don't have a lot to say about Mirror Psychic, it's the most inoffensive recomposition so far. As with the previous Mirror Islands, I like the decision to streamline verses so that every monster can be heard evenly. I think the intro and outro verses are neat, and I prefer the presence Harionette has here more than on Psychic Island. I definitely prefer Psychic Island overall, but Mirror Psychic isn't a bad iteration. I've only listened to these islands a few times, so I may rearrange them later, but for now, B tier.
Oh, sorry, dude, I killed that fairy.
I had no idea what to expect going into Mirror Fairy Island, but I'm pretty indifferent to it. It's one of the more experimental recompositions, specifically in the song structure and the use of the call and response monsters, but what they did is solid. I love the opening verse, the variation in call and responses, and the use of a bridge between the chorus and Kana's verses. On the other hand, I find the bridge to be a little empty, and the verse before the song loops unfitting. I'd say Mirror Fairy has a healthy balance of strengths and weaknesses, but like Psychic, I still don't prefer Mirror Fairy to Fairy Island. Rating a song so close yet so far from its original version is surprisingly difficult. B tier.
Tori took an improv class and they said if you can't think of something, just say the word bones. It always kills.
Conceptually, I like what they were trying to do with Mirror Bone. Combining the non-chorus verses together to extend the opening and build up to the chorus, only for the chorus to build up itself, is a great idea. However, the execution isn't perfect. I still don't like the way Gnarls sounds on Bone Island, and Mirror Bone insists on pairing Gnarls with Fwog, which just doesn't sound good in my opinion. There's also this verse, which is so close to being good, but just isn't. If you've heard my recompositions, you know I love a good quiet transition, but the placement of this verse is odd and the transition itself sounds rough. Mirror Bone's build-ups are mostly great, but this one could have used some tinkering here and there. B tier. Light Island is a lot like Air Island, in that they both have a strong song structure, and Mirror Air demonstrates the consequences of deviating too much from that structure. However, I believe that Mirror Light demonstrates the payoff of deviating just the right amount from its structure. Mirror Light inverts its original structure, starting off loud and transitioning into a quiet build-up. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about this, but I think it's controlled enough to not sound overwhelming. However, everything past the intro is perfect.
Dum diddly dum 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 dum. 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 Dum diddly dum 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 dum.
It's close in structure to the original song, but balances out the monsters in a way that sounds unique and complements the vibe. In fact, I'd argue Mirror Light is closer to a lullaby than Light Island is as of writing this video. Part of me wishes that Yelmet wasn't on this island so that the whole song could sound this chill, but that's more of a nitpick. Mirror Light is great, arguably right up there with Light Island. A tier.
Dum diddly dum 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 dum. Dum diddly dum 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 dum. Dum diddly dum 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 dum. Dum diddly dum 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 dum.
And that's every Magical Mirror Island and My Singing Monsters. Only a few more islands remain to be ranked, but to do so, we'll have to go all the way back to the Dawn of Fire.
You are clear to enter. Welcome to Pizza Planet.
2024 was just an insane year for the My Singing Monsters series. I can't believe there's still more to rank. You already know my thoughts on Space Island. It's a stellar song, and Bowhead makes it even better. They're a great addition that adds some variety to the more repetitive verses. It is a shame that they don't play in the breakdown verse, but again, that's more of a nitpick. Space Island absolutely stays in A tier. Cloud Island's another great song that was improved by its newest addition. This time around, Tuskski plays in the bridge between both choruses, and I think this was an excellent decision. Not only do they sound good, but they flesh out a section of the song that's lacking in Monsters. And I'd much rather have that than have them compete with Louds McGee over here. Cloud Island remains in A tier. You know what they say, 2's a coincidence, but 3's a pattern. Cave Island's great, and Gnarls made it better. Like Tuskski, Gnarls plays in a section with very few monsters, as well as the transition from the first chorus and the outro. In my opinion, Gnarls ties up any loose ends Cave Island had, and I like that. Cave Island cements its place in A tier. And now, to cover the island with the most new additions since the release of my last update. In the span of a year and 2 months, the continent has had 11 now new additions since the release of Punkleton. Let's work our way up, starting with the most tame of them, 3 fire monsters. I've sung my praise for Bowhead, Tuskski, and Gnarls on the outer islands, but how do they compare on the continent? Well, they're just as great. Bowhead's track is moving, adding a beautiful sound to the outro. Tuskski is a great complementary monster, adding an additional melody to Glowl and Yelmet's verse, and some more power to Chorister's verse. And finally, there's Gnarls, who adds some nicer vocals to the outro. All three of these monsters improve the continent substantially, but let's see how the seasonals fare. The first seasonal released after Punkleton was Yule, who despite looking like this, has a decent sound. I like that after seasonal Shanty, Yule has learned to jingle and sing simultaneously. It sounds better and has a lot more flexibility in a song than their sing and jingle routine. Next up is Schmoochel, who I have mixed feelings on. On one hand, I like their melody and what it adds to the song, but on the other hand, their voice is a bit too high. In My Singing Monsters, Schmoochel actually has a soft tone to their voice, but this is just not it. Blabbit also has the problem of sounding a bit too high, but without the good comparison. Blabbit just sucks. And then there's Hula. This is the best seasonal on the continent. I don't understand how people can compare them to Blabbit. Hula adds a really catchy melody to Flowers' verse. There's also the detail of them trying to play off Pom Pom, something they've done on every island together, only to get interrupted by Cybop and have to come up with something on the fly. That's so good. The seasonals are a mixed bag, but I'm happy they ended on a high note. Lastly, there are the 4 most recent additions to the continent as of writing this video. The Mythicals. Just as the continent was seemingly complete, we got Gajoob and Yostrich, with Bazinga joining them shortly after. You may be wondering, if this island housed over 60 monsters and was already over 3 minutes long, where would the Mythicals fit in? Well, they extended the song. Cool idea, right? Horrible execution. Gajoob's verse kinda gets a pass, as the verse it repeats loops back into itself naturally. However, Yostrich's verse is awful. Chorister's verse had such a feeling of conclusiveness to it, and repeating it just sounds sloppy. I could excuse it if there was more variation between verses, but there just isn't enough. Really disappointed in the song extension, it slightly ruins the continent. Thankfully, the Mythicals themselves are fantastic additions. The Mythicals add that much needed variation between the repeating verses, and in Gajoob's case, it builds on the verses repeating pretty well. Yostrich and Bazinga don't build on the repeating verse very well in my opinion, but they do build on the outro verse. At the very least, I will not downplay Yostrich's addition. The way they harmonize in Chorister's verse is phenomenal. I will not have this island without Yostrich, and that's saying something considering they look like this. And that's everything ranked. I didn't like how bloated the tiers were getting, so I decided to employ more categorization. I also went back to rearrange some of the islands I didn't discuss in this video with the ones I did discuss. You may notice some more movement in the upper tiers, but I wanted this tier list to reflect my current views on every song in the My Singing Monsters series. Thank you for waiting and sticking through this massive update. 2024 was a crazy year for My Singing Monsters, and I look forward to seeing what the monster handlers cook up in 2025. As for my channel, I've got big plans for new content, and even when I'm busy, you may catch me collaborating with other content creators. I've been lucky to have met a lot of cool people in 2024, and I'm excited to see where these opportunities take me next. I'll talk to you all soon, wherever I am. Peace. Shout out to my channel members: Obama Gangnam Style, Metal Mario 64, Jan, Macchiato Sam, Mezuku, Edsel.t, Ominous Anon, Harold Total Drama Island Fan, Mike Man, Carl Boy, Pickle Son, Fruit Loop III, Cluttery Guy, Hailstorm Magma, I Don't Have a Name, Wacky Edits, Brownie, and Just Mike. If you're a channel member and want a shout out in my next video, feel free to leave a comment on this members only community post. Thank you. Also, happy belated holidays and a belated new year! I've been waiting to open this present for a little over a month now. Apparently it's sent by one of you. Yes, one of you out there. I wonder what it could be.